What's good, ninjas? Design Syndrome here. My name is Mauro Jaurena and I'm a graphic designer and digital artist based in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And in this video I wanted to share just a bit of insight in the practical and thought process behind some of my latest work that you've been asking for over on social media. So without further ado, let's get it. It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in war. This is actually a photo I took while playing Ghost of Tsushima, the PC port of the game. Beautiful game, and actually it takes a lot of cues and ideas from a character that I'm highly interested in, which is Miyamoto Musashi, who is a samurai that lived in feudal Japan around the 1600s and wrote the famous Book of Five Rings. I think I've mentioned y'all this book in some other video. Super profound book, I highly recommend it. And I wanted to sort of portray this amazing contrast the game brings between these almost kind of blissful landscape moments you get, such as this, to the darker and more violent moments of combat and war. So for the piece, let's start from the bottom. I created this super minimal composition with the image I took from the game. I diffuminated the edge to blend it and place it towards the bottom of the screen to let the piece breathe and support this idea of calmness. Then added some light curves adjustments, then some grain, and finally made this simple black and red gradient map to bring in the idea of violence. Then the powerful quote on top: it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war, to finish closing the idea. I wanted to use this Musashi quote in a poster since forever, man. And I always loved it because I think it hints really well to this idea that peace, it's something that needs to be chosen. And to actually be able to choose it, you need to be well capable of the contrary conflict. Like otherwise you're just harmless, you know? And you really don't want that in situations that maybe require you to have a conflict as an answer more at hand. And I don't mean conflict in the sense of having to exert physical violence on someone, maybe that for a very specific extreme scenario, but sometimes conflict can be something like holding your ground with an overextending client or a relative. And if you're afraid of even the slightest little bit of conflict, your career will suffer. Hell, your life will suffer. And I can tell you because I was that guy. Like, this is one of my main journeys as a person, even to be less afraid with conflict. To be able to succeed and to get the things that I wanted, I needed to be more comfortable in conflict. And I think that's one of the major key things we need to take away as artists, because what's funny about Miyamoto is that he was already a warrior, but the thing that gave him the other perspective to really close his view, in which allowed it to then wrote the Book of Five Rings, is that he became an artist. And when he gained that sensibility, like he came to it through the other way, through the way of harshness, right? And we as artists, being really sensible people, we still need to reach that other end, right? To be sort of more complete. And in saying this, it's not like you will always resort to violence. Hell, even most time, hopefully never, but you could. And choosing not to makes you live even previously really stressful situations in a much peaceful state of mind, which I think leads to a more tempered character. Let me know if you would like me to expand on this idea. I just love this. I'm him, I'm bro, you know what I mean? So this was a really cool one. I think the trigger for this one was burnt orange, which made me think of the orange of the flame, you know, when you burn a piece of paper, and then it made me think of me being burned out. So I chose this idea to convey with the piece of being not somewhere, as opposed to not being somewhere. Like you're just going through the motions, but you're not really there, you're not really aware. So for the piece, I feel like the cutout is a really simple, effective way of showing like the shape of somebody, like in being there, but with no content, as in no awareness. And another thing I just caught while doing this is that the choosing of the sidewalk, I feel, is really great, because it's usually a spot where you need to be aware, like so you don't get run over by a truck, you know what I mean? The positioning and then the place is also a nice error that occurred there, and I love it. So for the layers, this is actually a revised version of the free cutout action that's in the Shinobi stash. Go grab that because I'll update that really soon and I'll make a new version free, so you'll get it there. And then on top of that, within the cutout group, I just added one of my transparent textures. We can see it here. There's also a noise on top, some curves adjustments to give it more contrast so it pops. And on top, I created this sort of trace paper effect, which is only a group that has inside it a solid color layer with color white and has 50% fill. And then also within that group, we have another group that has all the graphic elements, as we can see here. And each element, we have it with less fill, so we get that sort of see-through effect to see what's below the tracing paper. And in the group itself, where we have the elements, we have a drop shadow. So we get that really subtle drop shadow from the ink towards what's below it. So yeah, that's how I made this one. So guys, most of these pieces and the prompts and all of that are from the 1 piece a day challenge we did in October. Thank you to everyone that took part in it, which itself it's within the yearly design challenge, in which I give weekly triggers or mini design assignments to work with some restrictions to further develop our creativity. This is all happening within the Discord channel, where everyone is sharing and commenting and giving feedback of each other's work, including myself. So yeah, it can get lonely out there in the cold interwebs of trying to be a designer or a digital artist nowadays. So if you feel like connecting with other designers that might have the same interests and fears as you, come join the Discord. We are all designing just over there. I'll let you the link for it below. So for this one, the prompt was the word perfection or perfect, I don't remember, which made me think of the quote, "Done is better than perfect." And this is a phrase that once you internalize it, that's why I chose a tattoo for the poster. Once you really learn it, it's something that will be with you forever. It really lifts this weight off of your shoulders. And in many aspects of life, not just your creative work. And my idea is that this perfectionism monster is just a way for us to not see our work done. And in that, realizing that it looks nothing like we had in our heads, like it shows us that this gap that exists between what we can see in our heads and what we can do with our hands, like it still exists and will always exist. Your taste will always be ahead of your execution. And I think that's a good thing, otherwise it becomes really hard to guide your work anywhere, really. And here the key thing I think is to make that gap as wide as you can bear it, and just detach a bit from the work and just trust that the next piece you make, that gap will be just a bit shorter, and like so. And as you get better, your gap will increase because now you're better and you can see better things, your taste evolves, right? You'll never close the gap. Which this also supports the idea, bear with me, I'm going on a tangent, but it'll be cool. But this also supports the idea that you improve through volume rather than striving for perfection. In the book Art and Fear, it tells the anecdote of a photography teacher. This book, guys, let me tell you, if I had to recommend one book to you that will rock your artistic socks off, it's this, not The Creative Act. This. It's just profound. I've cried with this shit, and that's mad. So this teacher splits his class in 2 groups. To one group, he says he's gonna grade around the quantity of photos they make. And the other group, he's gonna grade around the quality of one unique photo, a perfect photo that they need to submit. The most perfect one. The kicker here was that the quantity group produced much better work. It wasn't even close, because they could try things, experiment, reiterate, and build off of the previous image mistake, instead of being stuck in that obligatory masterpiece that they needed to make. And sometimes, my guys, we lock ourselves into that specific scenario, just by not letting go and trusting the process. And here I don't mean the process of any specific piece, but the process of our entire body of work. Like, we need to trust that this piece will be what it is, and what comes next will be just a tiny bit better, you know what I mean? The more you make, the better you get at it. It's pretty linear. Now going at last to the piece, one crazy thing that actually one of y'all pointed out to me over on Instagram is the typo on the tattoo. It says, "Done is better than perfect." Better than perfect. Which I think makes the piece even better, because it's like it's happening to the poster. The poster needed to be done, I didn't even realize it. And also the fact that it's a face tattoo with a typo, it's just And one thing, my guys, with this I'm not trying to tell you that design is this overly think thing, you know what I mean? I'm just here for this video. I made a script for it and I try to order the ideas that I had while making the pieces. I didn't make them to signify this. I'm telling you just the string of thoughts that was happening while I was making the piece, but now it's more put together and more orderly. So the poster itself, it's pretty simple. Let me turn down the elements. So I started with this image that I made with Midjourney. Then I brought in these tribal shapes from one of my tribal shape packs. The text element, to which I, with Ctrl T, and then with the mesh distort over here, I made it so it fits better the shape of the face. You just warp it around. Then added some blur to it, and with the blend if feature, if we go to blending options, I already told you this in another tutorial, but if you press Alt, click, and you separate the node, you'll see how we start to get some see-through of the lesser values, so we get to see some of the pores and the texture of the skin. Just play around it till you get something that looks realistic. Then I gave everything a bit more of a slight blur, so it's like the ink that's being absorbed by the skin and sort of diffusing more. After that was done, I duplicated this group and kept the one below for backup. I merged the one on top, played around with some curves adjustment to lock in the contrast, then duplicated it again, gave it a really hard Gaussian blur. This is to create that nice bloom, and then made a clipped adjustment layer, a curves adjustment layer, and play with the values a bit. And this is, I made it, played with the red curves, so I get the ink to go a little bit more to the green tones. I know this because on darker skin, Artarus get a bit more greenish and yellowish like that. And then after that, another curves adjustment layer to get a bit more of a dreamy look to the picture. And after that, I just added the supporting graphic elements. These ones are just to balance the piece. They don't add much meaning. And yeah, on top of that, we have a chunky noise and a finer noise. So we get that nice like diffuse effect. The prompt for this poster was idea. And I think the poster is pretty self-explanatory. I actually got the inspiration for this specific piece. I was reading Demons by Dostoevsky. I think it's also called The Possessed. But the inspiration I got for the idea was like graphic. I was reading the book and I thought like, oh, this would be really cool for a poster. Although in the book it talks more about the negative consequences of letting an idea sort of have you like that in such an extreme way. There is this character that doesn't believe in God, and to prove it, he kills himself. Not because he's unhappy. Bro thinks that this proves that his will is absolute and entirely his own. Because if all will belongs to him, then none belongs to God. And if God has no will, then it doesn't exist. So he wants to show he can do whatever he wants, and that makes him a god. So there is something about that in this piece. But when I got the idea, it was more like graphic. I'm not completely on board to the entire letting an idea have you to that extreme extent. But yeah, sometimes it's needed, I guess. And actually making a poster, I think, is one of those moments, because it's really hard to make a piece about sometimes something. You know what I mean? It sort of dilutes the power of whatever you're trying to say. And posters are all about commitment to the idea. A lot of you were asking how I've made this poster, so let's take it from the top so you understand each step. To make this poster style, I'm gonna teach you a really simple and easy to do layer combo. First, I like to work on the composition, so I brought in this light bulb image. I was trying some text layout that I think were really whacked, so then I ended up with something like this. You'll understand why the colors I kind of faded at the bottom. I'll show you, it all makes sense later. And once that I have my main composition that's sort of dialed in, I put these layers on top of everything. The layer combination is a thick pointy giant noise, the one that I already told you how to do in hard mix mode. Blink the fill down to 80%. On top of it, we're gonna bring a gradient map that has this kind of 4 stops in color, something like that. Go from dark to clear and play with the intermediate values, add some different colors. And below the noise, curves adjustment layer. And from this one, we'll control the values of the entire composition. So now we can go back and keep adding things to the piece. I added these lightnings, which are from my lightning pack available at the store, all within a group with a mask to keep them within the light bulb. I brought a curves adjustment layer on top, layering effect after effect, you know. If I want to control only the lightnings, I'll bring a curves adjustment layer and adjust only the lightnings. I don't need to go all the way back up. Once I'm out there and everything's sort of finished, I'll tweak it in that curves adjustment that's on the top. But for now, if I want to just tweak the lightnings, I'll do it like so from the layer group itself. Then I added this human shape that has some effects. It has an inner glow, a satin, and an outer glow. This is how the shape looks alone on itself. And with the outer glow, the satin, and the inner glow to sort of separate it from the lightnings themselves. Then I added the lightnings on the outside. These ones are on another group that has the invert mask as the inner lightnings, you know. And then to this group I brought the fill down. You see, if I bring it all the way back up, it doesn't look right, but if I bring it down, it looks far more cohesive, right? And just so you see, guys, this is how it all looks without the top layers rendering the effect. It's important you know how it works, so then you can go in and tweak the values so you get the image and the separation you want from the elements. Once everything's done, I put the entire piece into the group and duplicate it. I'm gonna merge the one on top and I'm gonna keep the one below as a backup. I'm gonna duplicate this one again, give it a slight blur and put it to linear dodge at around 70% to create a really light and subtle blur like we did to the perfection image. On top of that, a transparent paper texture, and finally a curves adjustment layer to just dial in the values and contaminate the shadows so we get like that greenish black that I really like. And yeah, that's it for this one. Now we have the Mind Killer piece. This is a piece that I actually made in collaboration with a longtime friend of mine from uni, Cassiel. His work is amazing, mostly focused on complex type and calligraphy work, and recently he's been making some really gnarly Blender stuff. Please go check it out if you haven't already. The project began with him sending me all these typographic arrangements inspired in the latest Dune movie, to which I added a few things. We went back and forth for a while and we ended up settling around something like this. We got the idea of making it like a lost high-tech tablet that was just being found. The base for the effect is the same effect as the hard press tutorial and template that I have on my channel already. I'll leave you here the link for the comprehensive tutorial. To this I added this fragment of a rock, to which I added a curves adjustment layer to sort of match the lightning that it should have on that part of the tablet. It should be darker since the fall off is from the top side. Then I tweaked the direction of the gradient on top so it matches the direction in the lightning of the rock itself, so it looks more realistic. Then I added this bit of rock at the top to sort of break the contour a bit because it was looking like too homogeneous. With that bit of rock on top, it sort of breaks the shape from the perfect rectangle, makes it look a bit better. Then added some color balance, levels, and a curves adjustment layer to get a more interesting tone. This is how it looks without. These ones I made with the laser sight brush pack that's available for free on my store. I'm not trying to plug everything into every part of the video, but I truly do use everything that I make. So don't hate the player, hate the game, you know what I mean? This is how the lasers looked. So on top of it, I added some gradient map and hue and saturation to play around with the colors till I get this really nice blue that I like. Then I grabbed all of these layers, duplicated them, and merge them, and then to this set it as linear dodge, bring down the fill, and that gives it that really nice punch glowy feeling. And yeah, then after that added a chunky noise on top of everything and these two variations on the curves adjustment. So we have two variations on the lightning. I have one that's a bit more visible and lighter, and one that's more dramatic and dark. And yeah, that's it. Well, that's it, my guys. Hope you found the insight helpful in some way. For this video, I wanted to focus a bit more on the ideas and the thought process behind the pieces rather than the effect themselves, because I have a lot of videos for the effect and I'm planning to make more that go really in depth so you really understand them, you know? I feel that the how on doing things, it's something that's more easily fixed than the what to do in things, and coming up with the ideas that would ultimately give your work its character. That then it's empowered even further by the aesthetics of it all. So that's that, guys. If you want to join and be a part of the design challenge, come join the Discord. This year has come to an end already. We'll take a vacation, but we'll be back at it with the weekly prompts around February, I think. And I'll try to keep making this indefinitely. I want to provide a place that's a source of guidance, inspiration, and ideas for when you feel kind of in a dry spot and are not sure on what to do next or what to explore. So that's the gist of it, my guys. Don't forget to subscribe, click the notified bell button so you don't miss any future videos. Thank you for watching, ninjas. Fuck peace, wish you conflict. Peace.